Hello everyone, in this video we will learn how to add GitHub login to a Node.js application using Passport.js. This means user can log in to our app using their GitHub accounts. We will break it down step by step starting from setting up the project to implementing GitHub OAuth2 Authentication. By the end of this video, you will understand how to set up basic Node.js app, use the Passport.js library for authentication, create a GitHub OAuth application to get your client credentials, implement login with GitHub. So let's dive in. Before starting the coding part, let's quickly discuss the tool we will be using. So first is Node.js, which is an environment for running our JavaScript server. And second, we are using Express.js, which is a minimal web framework for building the app. And third is Passport.js, which is a library that simplifies authentication. And fourth is Passport GitHub 2, a strategy used by Passport.js specifically for GitHub authentication. And the fifth we are using is Express Session to handle user session, keeping track of logged in users. And the last which we use is .env to securely store sensitive data like your GitHub client ID and secret. These tools make it easy to set up GitHub authentication. So let's create our project. For that, we have to go inside the terminal and type cd desktop. Inside the desktop, we have to make a folder. So type mkdir GitHub OAuth App. Now our folder is created on the desktop. So go inside this folder, type cd GitHub OAuth App. Now we have to type the command npm init-y. So this will create a package.json file which stores the configuration of like the app's name, app's version, and the main from where our file gets started to run. And these are other configurations. So for opening the folder, we have to go on desktop and open this GitHub Auth app using Visual Studio Code. Now you can see we have that package.json file here. And you will watch all the dependencies we install will be shown here. So let's open the terminal. Inside the terminal, now type npm install first express, then express session, then passport, then passport GitHub 2, then .env. So these all are the packages which we have to install. So they get installed and you can see inside the package.json we install all the dependencies here. Now we have to create a base folder which is index.js. Inside this folder we have to import Express, which we already installed, and next we will import passport for the authentication purpose. Okay. Then we will import session, express session with the name variable session. We will require express session. Okay. After that, we have to import GitHub strategy. So for that, we have to write GitHub strategy is equal to require, what we will require? Passport GitHub 2 dot strategy. Before that, we have to import environment variables. So let's import them as a require dot env dot config. So this .env is used to load sensitive data like your API keys from the .env file. So let's create the .env file. Inside this, we will load all the necessary sensitive credentials. Now let's create the Express instance. Const app is equal to Express, which will configure routes and requests. So let me explain this all. Actually, this is the .env which already I explained you about. Now here we are importing Express for creating the server, and here we are exporting Passport, which is a code library we will use for authentication actually, and this is the session Express. So in this we will use to manage user sessions, and the last one is GitHub strategy. So that's handle GitHub OAuth login. So now we need to set up an Express session. Session allows us to remember users once they logged in. So let's write about it. App.use session. Inside this, we have to pass the secret key. For now, I'm just taking it secret. And the second we will write resave. Take it as default as false. And last is save uninitialized. Take its default as true. So let's save it. So here, this is used to sign session ID for a security. So here I just take the secret key. You can type anything you want. Now, second, resave. This prevents the session from being saved if nothing changes. So we take it default as false. And the third is save uninitialized true. This creates a session even if it has not been modified. So our session is created. Now we will configure Passport.js to use GitHub authentication. So for that, we have to take the Passport middleware and type passport.initialize. And second, we have to create the session for passport. So here passport.use, this tells Passport to use GitHub's OAuth strategy. Okay. So we will use passport.use and type new GitHub strategy. Inside this, we take the client ID, we take the client secret. We have to declare here client ID, which we will take from .env file. So for that reason, we have to first create the client ID, client secret from the GitHub OAuth, then we will come back here. So for that, we need to go in the browser and open GitHub developer console. Now we see GitHub developer settings. We have to log in with the details. So after logging, you will see here new OAuth app. So we have to click on this. Now we have to fill the application details. First we have to choose the application name. for example, my GitHub login. Okay. Then we have to write the homepage URL. So our homepage URL is http://localhost:3000. Now we have to authorize the callback URL so that it can call back to our app. So we have to type the URL http://localhost:3000:auth/github/callback. Now after registration, this we have to actually register application. So click on this register application. Now you see we got the client ID and client secret. So these we will use in our application. So go back to your application. Now here we can't take the sensitive data on this application. For that reason we have created the .env file. So we will use the data here. Like we have to create first GitHub client ID is equal to, let's take it from the browser which we get here. This is the GitHub client ID. Copy this and paste it here. Now second is GitHub client secret. We have to take it again from here. Generate a new client. Now you see you get the new client. Just copy it and use it in your .env file and save it. Now we will use these names for declaring the client ID. So here we have to type how it takes from the .env file. We have to write process.env.GitHub client ID. It should be same as we written in .env because otherwise it will create error. Next we have to take client secret. Again we have to type process.env. We have to copy the GitHub client secret and paste it here and save it. Next we have to take the callback URL and type the same callback URL which we used in GitHub. So type http://localhost:3000/auth/github/callback and save it. Now we have to write a done function. So for that, take the access token, refresh token, and profile and done. Inside this callback function, we have to return done, null, and profile. So save it. Now I'm going to explain this what is actually doing. So here passport.use, this tells the passport that to use GitHub's OAuth strategy. Now here is the client ID. So this client ID and client secret, these comes from GitHub when you create an OAuth application. So callback URL, after a user logs in on GitHub, they will redirect back to this URL on our server. So it is the callback function here. So once the users log in, this function is called with the GitHub profile data. Okay, GitHub profile data. We can use this to create and update the user in our database. But for now, we will just pass it back to Passport because we are not getting any databases here. So next, we have to create the function to tell Passport how to handle user session. For that, we have to declare serialized users and deserialized user functions. So let me explain. Serialized user it will Passport save the user information. We store the whole user profile here, okay? And deserialize user, when the user makes future requests, this function retrieves the stored data. So let's create it. Passport dot serialize user. This will save the user data, okay? On done. And inside this callback, we will pass when done. It will save the user and save it. For same, we have to type for deserialization. Oh, sorry. Yeah, deserialization. Deserialize user. So user, when done, inside this, we have to call the function done and it will retrieve user data. So we have created our serialized user and deserialized user. Now the time comes to create the routes. The important configuration is done. So let's create the route. We have to create the first route app.get slash request comma response. Inside this, we will send back a link which will be inside a tag. Okay. And we tell where to go when user click on that link. That will go on auth slash GitHub. Okay. So here we have to write that login with GitHub and save it. Now we have successfully created the homepage route. So let's define authentication route because we have to declare this route also on which the user has to go after clicking on login with GitHub. App.get slash auth slash GitHub, and after this we have to say to Passport to authenticate through GitHub. Okay, and we pass the scopes. We will pass scopes user email. Here we will pass the user email. Okay, so this starts the GitHub login process. Okay, we request the user's email and basic information from GitHub. Once the GitHub has authenticated the user, they redirect to the callback URL. So we have to define the callback URL. App.get the callback URL which we already declared is auth GitHub slash callback. Okay, and again we write passport.authenticate through GitHub, and this time we ask for if failure occur. If failure, then redirect to homepage root route. If it's successful, then we take the request and response. We take the request and response, and inside this callback function, we redirect to profile. Okay, if user is successful. So here, if authentication is successful, they are redirected to the slash profile route. If it fails, then sent back to home page. So finally, we create the slash profile route where users can see their GitHub informations. Okay, so app.get slash profile request comma response. Inside this callback function, we will send back a message, okay, which will say hello, and we want here dynamic data. So we will take the username. request dot user dot user name and save it. So here request.user, this contains the user's GitHub profile data. In this case, we are taking username. So let's create the log out route because we also want to log out from it. /log out. And inside this request comma response callback function, we have to create a when the request is about to log out, which is a passport function, we have to run a callback function that responds with the redirect to /homepage. So it will redirect to homepage. Now the last thing is to just listen to the port number. And here we are using 3000 /callback, and inside the console.log we have to say the message server is running at port 3000 and save it. And that's it. So now start the app with running in terminal. So in terminal type node index.js. Now you see server is running at port 3000. So let's go in the browser at port 3000, localhost 3000, and you will see here the link. GitHub is GitHub, login with GitHub. So let's click on this link. And you will see here that it asks you to authorize to your profile. So let's authorize it. Fail to obtain access token. We have done some issue in access token. So let's see what's issue. So here we have the typo in GitHub. Okay, now save it. Now again we have to run node index.js and now go to the browser and type localhost 3000. Now click on login with GitHub. You will see hello tutorials 20 sudo. Actually this is my GitHub username, so it's showing here. So let's log out it and press enter, and you are logged out from this. And that's it. You have successfully added GitHub login to your Node.js app using Passport.js. You can now use this knowledge to add GitHub authentication to your own apps. Thanks for watching and feel free to leave any questions in the comment.